Wow, there it goes. Hello and welcome everyone to a special episode of the Culture Nerd Podcast. This week we decided just to go live because there's a lot of little things to talk about, but not enough to make one whole episode about a specific topic. So we're going to sit down and do this as Michael so nicely put it before we began, a grab bag episode where we're going to talk about a whole lot of little things because we have lots to talk about. And I mean, there's from the more recent casting from Tron 3, it looks like Jeff Bridges is back. So I want to talk about that because how? And then Rebel Moon had its debut for part 2, and it's come out to exactly what people were expecting. Some very, very mixed to negative reviews, yet it's still putting in some decent numbers, according to Netflix. But then according to other outlets, it's not putting in numbers. So we're going to talk about that and what that all means. We're also going to talk about X-Men 97 as it begins its final stretch. The last 3 episodes of this season are going to be what the team behind the show is called the final story arc. And there's a lot of stuff in that final arc that's going to presumably reshape the X-Men franchise as we know it. So we're going to talk about all of this stuff and more. And here we go. And here we are. You muted yourself, Michael. You're talking, but no one's there.
And here we are.
There we go. So, I mean, like we were kind of saying before the show starts, I was a bit racking my brain on what we were going to talk about because there's not a lot that's actually going on in the last few days. And everything that's presumably newsworthy isn't actually really newsworthy.
Well, they're everything is, I don't know, they're cooking. They're making all the stuff right now. Let's do this here. Here would be the order of things that I would ask you about. And first and foremost, I feel that this is a great time. You have been a champion of Tron for a very long time. I can't believe they're doing another Tron. I also can't believe Jeff Bridges is back.
Yeah. So Tron 3, aka Tron Ares, has been in a literal development hell since 2010 when they released Tron Legacy, and they set up a sequel, and then nothing happened for like
Taylor. They can't get Daft Punk back. Like, how do you?
What if they could?
Taylor, they put so much into Tron Legacy. I can't tell you how many people tell me that album was the album they went to college to, right? Like, they studied for all of their exams listening to that Tron album.
Such a goddamn good album. Like, it's one of those albums. I have a friend, one of the TCN founding fathers. We like to call her the founding mother of TCN because she was the only girl in our ragtag group of nerds. And we were going to record one of our podcasts back when we did the original TCN, the Gentleman's Discussion, and she was late. And ironically, it was kind of frustrating because she was the one who was actually hosting the podcast at her house. So we were all waiting on her porch for her. She pulls up and she's like, I just got out of a speeding ticket. And we're like, how'd you do that? And she's like, I was blasting the Tron Legacy soundtrack super loud. I lost track of like how fast I was going. And then the cop came up, heard it, and complimented on it and gave me a pass. And I was like, God damn, it's such a good soundtrack. Even the cops good soundtrack.
The cop enjoyed chasing her so much. He was like, this is amazing chase music.
Don't. Yeah. I hope they do somehow bring one of them back. Even if you can't get both members of Daft Punk. Half of Daft Punk is still better than no Daft Punk.
No, they're going to give it to Justice. They'll give it to some other. It should be Hans Zimmer and like Skrillex. Like, you really should get 2 people to really work on this. Taylor, who is the audience for Tron? Me. I know. But how do we convince everybody else to it?
There was such an actual thing is that Tron Legacy has become a cult classic in its own regard. And people will say, oh yeah, it's a good movie. It's got a good soundtrack, but it is actually more popular now in the cult sphere of the internet than it was actually when it came out. Very much like the original Tron, which is what led to Tron Legacy to exist in the first place. And in Disneyland Shanghai, I believe, had their Tron Legacy ride that literally was their most popular ride at the entire Disneyland, so much so that they opened one over in Disney World in Florida. And that thing is still lines out the door. So people acknowledge that Tron is actually a property that people would like to see more of. But it's always been one of those ahead of the time sequels. The reason why Tron Legacy died, the sequel died essentially, was because of Tomorrowland. Like, that's the truth of it, because Tomorrowland was one of those films that came out. Disney put a lot of money into it, and with all, like, it's actually a pretty entertaining movie. Like, I sat down and watched it despite being critically panned and everything. I was like, all right, let's give it a go. I actually kind of liked it. It was actually it had a lot of cool ideas, a lot of visual spectacle, but I could see why people didn't like it. And that movie was one of those, it was so expensive that it taught Disney how to not be adventurous anymore. And that's why they started playing it safe and just doing Marvel and Disney remakes. And that's all they did for like a decade.
So then where does this fit in? Is it because the boardroom is all up in arms, or that they're trying to go back to Disney-led franchises, and maybe this kicks down the door for Tron to come back? And I don't know, aren't they doing another Pirates movie?
They were doing something with pirates, but nobody really understands what, because every time they say, we're going to do more pirates, but without Johnny Depp, everyone's like, why? Just stop. So we'll see. But
they almost have to do Tron Legacy over. They have to like retell that story so everybody gets caught up. I mean, I guess people will watch it. I guess that's true. But like,
all they have to do is another intro scene like they did in the last one, where they have like a 5-minute intro explaining what happened the last 30 years.
I need new set pieces. I need them to like, they've like put all these little pieces together. I need to see it put all together. I need to see a Tron guy go into a facility, break into a facility, murder a bunch of people with his little circle boy. Also, why don't they have lightsabers yet? Shouldn't they have Tron lightsabers at this point?
Well, they have those like Tron nightstick looking things.
Okay, we need a sword. And then what's the new vehicle?
It's not really clear, but what we do have is the first official set photo of Tron Legacy. That's a first official photo, not the set photo, but the first photo. Let me just grab it here. Why is it that I find it ironic that when I type in Tron Legacy set photos, the Cultured Nerd is one of the outlets that actually. So that's. Let me see if I can save.
The CN is ready for it.
We're the only ones talking about it. That's right. We've hijacked the algorithm. That's what I'm seeing. So the main title character of the show, it could be like, again, it's gonna be one of those grab bags, because this could go very well or very poorly. Jared Leto is playing the title character Ares, which we understand is he's decked out like a villain. His identity disc is a triangle, which is kind of weird. But we also understand that there's been a lot of behind the scenes rumors that Cillian Murphy is returning as Edward Dillinger Jr. To take over the resurgence of the MCP. That was actually meant to be the Tron 3 to begin with. We know Jeff Bridges is somehow coming back, even though his character died at the end of Tron Legacy.
Right. Listen, he's going to be flashback stuff, whatever it is. Every single person has to come back to make. Yes. If one person's like, I don't want to be a part of this, it's going to throw shade on it. Everybody has to come back, and if you don't want to be in it, that's fine. Show up, and we'll replace you with a younger AI program.
Yeah. So, I mean, the only characters that are really alive from the last movie to this one were Bruce Boxleiter's Alan Bradley, who was also doubling for Tron, and Garrett Hedlund's Sam Flynn and Olivia Wilde's Cora. Those are the only characters that actually made it out of Tron Legacy that could reprise their roles. And so far, Cillian Murphy is the only character that's actually rumored to cameo in this film. And he was a blink and you miss it cameo at the beginning of the movie.
And they go to like an underground cave, right? Like they run away, they get bombed, they like find the area, and then they could go. they could very easily not be in this movie and show up at the end of this movie where it's like, oh, thank goodness, you're the reinforcements we need. Let us tell you what we found out.
That's kind of what I was assuming, was that the only way you don't include these characters on the cast list is if they're meant to not be on the cast list until the final act. And that's like one of those glorified cameos that you don't talk about until it sets up whatever they're setting up. I mean,
okay.
I kind of like the idea that what if this is kind of setting the stage for a proper Tron Legacy sequel, but they're having to tell another part of a story to kind of revamp everything as they lead into it. So
Ares is obviously the new program that looks evil. Do we think that the program becomes self-aware and like goes to kill an AI little girl and is like, I freak out and now I'm going to change sides? Or do we think they hack Jared Leto? What is Jared Leto's agency in all of this?
There's so many questions behind it, but one of the most interesting things that I'm seeing is that the actual set photos of this film have Ares walking around in the streets as if he's crossed over into the real world, very similar to what Sam did with Korra. So the whole ending stage stuff with Clue saying, I want to bring all of you people into this world. And then you've got set photos showing Jared Leto in his Tron outfit walking around on like building steps and like very much in the real world, kind of makes you wonder that what if this is the MCP bringing the first program over and it's like an actual, like a hunting program, like a war program meant to track down Korra. And they're leading into that.
Does that mean we get to see like, I mean, we're going to get scenes where we're going from computer to real world and back, but does that
just like in every movie?
Well, but do you think that we'll see like an action scene, almost like, have you played the Nair Automata games where you're like a girl with a giant sword and then your friend is hacking a computer and that's like we're going to get action scenes where we're seeing they'll infiltrate the building and they're shooting machine guns at, robots or something.
So my first thought was like, what if like you have a sequence where like the cops are literally chasing a light cycle down the freeway?
Oh, like how fast does that bum us out though if we find out a light cycle is only like 60 miles per hour? Like, no, I thought
but like just imagine like the spectacle of having like Ares drive around in a light cycle, cops are chasing it, then he flips on his switch and then a light beam is beaming down the freeway and destroying the cop cars because he's cutting them off with video game logic. Like
and if it's light, like can it go in the air? Can it go on like wires and stuff like that? Like, what is the property of the computer stuff? Who knows?
Who knows? There's so many they have kept the storyline for this movie so far under wraps that every time they announce a new member of the cast, people are like, what the F is happening in this movie? Because you've got Jared Leto as Ares, but you've also got Greta Lee. And she is, a lot of people knew Greta Lee first from like her random 5 or 4 episodes in New Girl. But she really made a lot of waves recently with her movie. She did Russian Doll, but what was that one? Past Lives. That was the big movie that really got people like, oh, she's really good at what she does. And then you've got like Cameron Monaghan. He was from Shameless, but also the face of the Star Wars Jedi franchise. Evan Peters is in this film too. You've got Jodie Turner-Smith. You've got Arturo Castro. Gillian Anderson from X-Files. She's in this film.
Do they have to link this to the cartoon show that they did a couple years ago?
If they didn't, it would make... I mean, they don't have to because the Tron Uprising cartoon show was just a prequel to Legacy, and it was really damn good. It was actually one of those shows when I watched it, I'm like, why didn't we get this story building in Tron Legacy? Like,
yeah.
It was one of those, like, this could have filled so many people's complaints. Like, this could have answered it all. Like, this is great. But now we have Jeff Bridges coming back as Kevin Flynn, and obviously it once again confirms that this is not a actual reboot because Kevin Flynn is involved in some capacity. You can't reboot Tron and then include Kevin Flynn.
Well, you can find he's gonna turn on he's gonna open a QuickTime file and he's gonna be like, hey, it's me. I have some things to tell you about because I thought this might happen someday.
And that's what they got to do. They got to have some way of tying into modern day Encom. And you can easily just say like Sam Flynn has been running the company. Here's Bruce Boxleiter's Alan Bradley is still like the CFO or whatever. You can have all of the references to explain that the world is still going, but you also have so many things else you could do with this, right? You can explore this world and then tie it back to everything. You can show, I mean, Disney owns the right to the characters, so they can use the characters and their likeness in any capacity they want. So they could have CGI versions of these characters in backgrounds if they wanted to. Like, you don't have to, like, you can argue what you want to, and obviously that's what the whole like AI stuff and the strikes we're trying to prevent. But if it's not a speaking role and it's just like a cameo in the background, you can do that. That's still within their legal bounds. So there's so many things that can happen here with how they could tie it in and also be separate, or they could just be doing this own crazy story and then lead it into a proper Tron 4, which is like the Sam and Cora versus the AI that's trying to hunt them down.
Right, and I guess they would then be trying to prevent the AI from coming, the programs from coming into our reality.
As they started to.
Maybe it's just like a Terminator movie.
Maybe.
And Ares comes and he's like, and Ares is like, I'm looking for John Connors. I mean, whatever the lead of this movie is, and then they like fight in a building.
You could easily have like Ares being a program. So this is what
they're not time traveling, right? We're not going to see. Okay.
So the official tagline is Tron Ares showcases Ares, a Leto's computer program who is now on a journey from the digital world into the human one.
So Leto then also exists in the real world.
Yeah, because what we have is that in the Tron universe, if you are a creator of a program, if you're the user who built the program does look like you. So you've got this program, but you could also incorporate the MCP, because that was always the plan to bring him back. Incorporate the MCP into weaponizing this program to hunt down the true AI, which was Cora, which is one of the last remaining ISOs. Or you have so many different things, because I mean the MCP's whole goal was to take over everything. And then you have Clue, which wanted to kill all the ISOs because they shouldn't exist. And then what if the MCP is like, that's my ticket to becoming truly self-aware. I want her, go get her. And he weaponizes Ares as a way to hunt her down.
For sure she's involved in all of that. I'm sure, okay.
All wild speculation. We're going to be way wrong when it comes out.
I'm so happy we're going to be wrong. We saw a script. Do you think that's the first table read? You think this is the first time everyone's seeing everyone together?
No, they've been filming for quite some time, actually. And the film is actually due to come out October of next year, so they're still going to be filming for a while. But the fact that they just casually dropped Jeff Bridges a picture of him reading the script today, I'm curious what they're going to do with that. I do like his comments when he finally announced that he was coming back, that he said that the CGI, the 2010 CGI Clue looked more like Bill Mayer than it did Jeff Bridges, which I thought was a really funny gag in himself about that. But I'm really excited because I love the Tron universe, and I always felt like it had a lot of untapped potential. And if they do it right, we could have a very good movie out of this.
So I saw this as a headline, and I saw Tron, and I saw Jeff Bridges. I saw the picture, and I was very excited. Taylor, these headlines ruin things because, for example, I found out today that Deadpool is going back into reshoots and is doing reshoots till May.
Right, which is standard. That's standard pickups.
Yesterday I read as a headline that Chris Evans is coming back to the MCU, and he's the Human Torch in Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah, now, there is an actual legitimate rumor.
Great. Why would they put that out there? I would like to.
Because the internet sucks. Because the internet sucks. That's why.
You suck, internet. You're sucking all the fun out of surprises.
For everyone who wants to know what the big rumor is, by all means, just keep listening. If you don't, I'll box it out in about 90 seconds. The big rumor is that Chris Evans is coming back as the Human Torch as part of the Resistance fighters against Cassandra Nova in this Wasteland series of shit. And this Resistance group also has Channing Tatum's Gambit, Daphne Keene's X-23, Jennifer Garner's
Elektra.
There you go, Elektra. I just forgot. I was like, what is her character's name? And a couple other characters of the Foxverse canon. And it's going to be this like really cool, like, oh, these are the the anti-Brotherhood, anti-Cassandra Nova stuff. These are the people that Deadpool and Wolverine are going to team up with and going to stop her from doing whatever the hell she's doing. So it sounded like it could be a lot of fun. But it's one of those, like, it would have been such a great cameo. If you're watching the movie for the first time, just sitting there, and then he comes out and he's like, "Oh my God, Captain America!" He's like, "No," and then poof, on fire. Like, that would have been such a funny.
I would do a double cameo. Okay. I didn't mean for balloons to pop up. I apologize. First cameo is we hear the captain sting, da da, and then Chris Evans pauses the TV and he goes, "Everyone get in here. We're gonna watch Captain America." And then we see a different universe Captain America, whoever you want to cast.
Like
John Krasinski,
have him do it again. Like
John Krasinski is another universe's Captain America, and then we see him light on fire or something like that.
Yeah, something ridiculous. Like, I would just love it. Like, it'd be so funny.
I think that all of these people agreeing to do this is because of
Ryan Reynolds.
Yes, and not Disney. And that's the interesting thing. It's like, what happens? What do these people want to play around in the next MCU thing? Because there's a weird thing happening where it's like, oh, the MCU stuff's not very good, but if you mix the MCU with maybe a little bit of Sony, you get a bunch of fun Spider-Mans. And if you mix it with a little bit of Fox, you get all these other characters we've wanted to see for a long time.
I think that's what's kind of happening, is that the people who are part of the Disney machine have realized that it's a lot more fun when there's other people in the room to kind of taper the other creatives and allow a much more ridiculous story. Like, the fans made Deadpool 3 happen. I mean, this movie wasn't going to happen. Kevin Feige and all them were trying to, like, wipe the slate clean with everything. And then here we are, and Deadpool 3 is essentially going to be like the end game of the Fox universe in the best way possible.
Yeah, it's funny. I think that is the right way to do it. We kind of got the summation of the Sony universe and all the Spider-Mans in the last Spider-Man movie, which felt amazing. As a viewer, I saw all these movies in the cinema. To see this movie in the cinema was a very full circle thing. I don't think Marvel has anything like that in its back pocket and are trying to build up to that now. Yeah. So they're cashing in on this cliche one more time.
Yeah. And they're going to clash another time with Secret Wars when they bring in everybody that they've ever had any hands with. So it's going to be like all the Spider-Mans, all the X-Men, all that. Like, they're just going to do it again. And people are going to show up because I've said it multiple times that I vastly prefer most of the X-Men movies than the MCU. Because even though they didn't treat the characters, I don't know, they did take a lot of liberties with the characters, I'll say that, but they also didn't treat it like the universe had to be catering to children. Like,
that's
X-Men First Class.
True.
X-Men First Class was one of my favorite movies, and it's one of those movies that it's hard to have these conversations in a Disney movie. And that whole movie starts off with the prejudices, the hiding, the Nazis. Like, they go right off the bat, like, these are people that are legitimately hiding from the world. And they're hiding from the world because literally every point in history, men following orders can lead to massive atrocities. You're not going to get that conversation in a Disney movie because they're always like, either the government's really good or the government's really bad because of Hydra. But they also, like, the only time they've had that conversation was Winter Soldier, then they never did it again. So
and that was one of the better movies, right?
That was one of the best movies.
That's one of the more watchable movies. That one's really good. But it makes me so sad to hear us talk about that, and like the fact that I'm already seeing people shit on whatever this next Captain America, Winter flying Captain America got wings. Yeah, it's Captain America, Angels in the Outfield.
Yeah, I mean, one of the characters prays at night and he gets wings and he fights the government.
He can see where the angels are, and he goes out and he lets everyone. He said Justin Gordon-Levitt comes back and does this, and that's how we know where to go find all the guys.
Yeah, that's how he kills the Falcon. He's like, come on.
That show has to be. That movie has to be the TV stuff, right? Like, they set up all those Young Avengers kids. Those kids all got to go fight now.
They got to be in something. But I don't know. I have so many questions on what they're doing with this movie, but all we know is that
Indiana Jones is in it.
Yeah, because one actor died, and they, despite the fact that they don't want to recast certain people, other people are fair game to be recasted, which is a bummer. And they're recasting him, and instead of giving him the mustache that Harrison Ford has always been able to rock very well, he just looks like Harrison Ford, just clean shaven Harrison Ford. So they miss an opportunity to wow another generation with the awesome facial hair that Harrison Ford can grow.
Listen, they're going to have to look it up in pictures and discover it on Wikipedia like the rest of us.
Yeah. It's just frustrating.
Okay, so that's a movie. Does that movie come out this year?
Allegedly, supposedly.
Allegedly, supposedly. Now, here's a good transition. You were going to bring up some streaming numbers. Another one of the headlines.
No, it comes out next February. They moved it again.
Okay, that makes sense. Another headline I saw today was that Fallout is the second most viewed thing on Amazon Prime, and they clocked 65 million views. Right, that's how many dinosaurs were watching it. Taylor, how do we trust any of these numbers? Like, the companies just say this, right? Like, do we really know? I mean, I've seen lots of buzz about it. I was very happy about it. I've told everyone in my life to watch it, but like, it was that word of mouth enough to get multiple people to watch it?
So what's interesting about it is that word of mouth definitely made this TV show a huge hit. And Variety dropped the news that according to Amazon, which is debatable. I mean, according to Amazon, it is the most watched show ever among 18 to 34 adults on their platform, with the show's audience coming from outside the United States and the UK, France, and Brazil having the biggest numbers out of the streaming chunk. But they had the show has a whopping 94% critical approval rating. It got renewed for season 2 almost within days, and 65 million views is a huge thing for an 8-episode series.
There's very little filler episodes in that show. There's maybe one I can think of. The first 3 episodes feel like a movie. The last couple episodes feel like a movie. Like, it just moves really well.
So I want to also point out that for people who to kind of like in perspective, let me see what was the Stranger Things number?
Also, I'm going to let you know that this Fallout show and its popularity just really lets Paramount know what a shit job they did with Halo. Do you understand that everyone wants it to be good, and all you had to do was attack it a little bit differently?
Yeah. You
can take it another part of the universe, just make it feel like it's a part of it and not its own thing, and they wasted all of that clout. I'm sure season 2 of Halo is better. I didn't finish the first season.
So the problem is season 2 of Halo had great action. And I will always say that this show has a great stunt team and a great choreography team, and all the action is fantastic.
I would love to meet those guys.
That show needs to sit down and actually talk to the people who made the games, because their whole stance on how we're not going to read any of the lore, we're not going to do any of this. Like, then what is the point of making an adaptation if you're not going to actually follow the lore to any capacity? Why are you even in it? Because you're not gonna get the fans who love the franchise to follow you, because they hate it. And the people who are watching it, who are not fans, are confused as hell, because they're like, why aren't people watching this? Then they go look into the lore for the original material and they're like, wow, that's better. So who does it benefit to do this?
Everyone who watches this show who hasn't played the games is going to want to go play these games. And now Bethesda has a great problem. How do they want to deliver this and maybe redo some original mechanics to make it for a broader audience to want to play those games?
What's interesting is the game Fallout 4 has this big next-gen update that came out. It's having some great numbers. But I was reading somewhere that Fallout 76, following the game the show coming out, it had a whopping insurgents. It's something like a million players logged in at one time. Like they've never had that before, and they were like, "Holy
Wow.
shit! Okay, we got to fix some stuff now because everyone's playing this game."
Yeah, I saw very quickly after. I guess Microsoft, who I guess has the making these Fallout games with Bethesda, was like, "Yeah, we're gonna try to get one out by 2030," which means I don't think they were working on a Fallout game. I think they're working on a Fallout game right now, and it's gonna take 5 years for it to come out.
Yeah. I mean, the Bethesda even kind of like let slip the other day that they were like, no, we're not currently working on Fallout 5, but we're probably going to start soon. So it's like,
also, can we also then open up the door? And I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but like, I feel like this is how Half-Life should go. They should make Half-Life.
I actually was legitimately talking to one of the TCN's fans the other day about how like this is legitimately what they need to do to cause a resurgence of Half-Life, because the Orange Box as a game, for people who never played it on PC, the Orange Box was such a huge thing for console gamers, and it brought a lot of people into the Half-Life world, and people realized very quickly that this is something that is primed to be made into a very good show.
And I think if they do the show justice, I mean, they could even do what they did with The Last of Us. Just literally a 1-for-1 of the beats. The audience will demand
more
for them to finish that story. And if they don't want to do it in a game, let's do it in a movie. Let's tell the grand story. Let's finish it up as a big cinematic thing.
Yeah, Half-Life Part 3 can be a movie.
Yeah.
Like
for sure.
But it's such an interesting thing because Valve just they don't have the people. Like they never had the people. They never had the team to make something like that happen. They're the kind of group that's like, we're not going to expand to do what people want. We're just going to do what we want to do, and we'll move from one project to the next. And it's unfortunate because you have all these people who legitimately want them to do this, and they know that the moment they announce it, their stock is going to blow up. But they just need to get somebody in and make a show, because Fallout has succeeded where no one expected it to. And I said this the last time, Fallout succeeded because it wasn't trying to retell the story, and it wasn't trying to adapt the story. So, I mean, for all the people who loved The Last of Us, great. Go play the game, and oh wait, the game's better. Everyone who saw the Halo show, go play the games. They're way better. But what Fallout did differently was they didn't retell anything. They actually made a story set within the universe and then canonized the games. Why not do that with some of these other franchises?
And they just let things be. We just have crazy technology that regenerates people and turns you into a ghoul guy. And now we got that ghoul, right? We now have a new ghoul from our first season that's like, well, where's that guy going to go? Like, what trouble is he going to get into now?
I just want to see him come back in the next season looking exactly the same, but missing his nose. And he's like, it fell off. And that's it.
Now this is a silly thing to say, but let's say it. Is season 2 confirmed?
Yes.
Okay.
They confirmed it. And they confirmed that the setting of season 2 will indeed be in New Vegas.
Great. Do you think we spend the whole season in New Vegas?
No.
Okay.
No, I expect them to spend a lot of it in New Vegas, but like just very much how this one wasn't all in the vault, very much like that. Like you had a lot of the episodes that took place in the vault and a lot of stuff happening in vaults, but there was also multiple other stories that existed not in the vault. So maybe 1/3 of the story will be in New Vegas, and the other will be some characters journeying to New Vegas while other characters are trying to still live it up in California.
Listen, it's crazy that there's going to be 2, maybe 3 seasons of this show, and then the next video game will make reference to all of this stuff that has happened because it's canon within the world.
Yeah, it's actually it's kind of exciting that they're doing this. But back to the segue of numbers, right? So we talked about numbers with Fallout, and whether or not you can believe these numbers, that's what Amazon said, and that's how Amazon justified automatically greenlighting a season 2. This is also Amazon who refused to actually put out the numbers for the Rings of Power.
Because they were bad. Those were really bad numbers.
Which is why I'm more inclined to believe that these are legit, because they didn't want to give out the numbers before. and they're flaunting these numbers. They're like, look, we struck gold with this. So this to me seems like it's much more plausible.
When they mean bad, they mean people aren't setting up Amazon Prime accounts to watch Lord of the Rings. How bad is Lord of the Rings? Does he get 1 million views? Does he get
it got enough for them to justify keep making it, but they were very, very under the mark.
I feel like that Lord of the Rings show should have just done what they did with Fallout and figured out a way to pay homage to its characters and its world instead of doing whatever they did, because it makes me sad. So we're talking about numbers. We're talking about if numbers are good. I like the X-Men cartoon. Are people watching it? Like, yes. I get that nerddom is watching it, okay? Like, I get that people are talking about it and stuff like that, and I don't think everyone was prepared to watch this show. I think we are watching it. But are the numbers for this doing well?
It is. Allegedly, the numbers are actually going so well for Disney that they're actually going to be greenlighting seasons 2 and 3 and fast-tracking their production so there's a less of a wait time between the next 2 seasons.
Does that mean to the animation house, it gets, it goes above whatever Star Wars thing they're working on 2 years from now? Or does
different department? They have different teams working on this show.
Okay. Yeah, they got North Koreans working on it is what another headline I read, Taylor. They got the North Koreans making our animation now.
So with the I really wish I could just like drop the brightness on my second screen. It's like making me look like I'm like looking into like
into the sun. You got to use special glasses.
It's like, what's going on in there, Jerry? Yeah. So X-Men 97, the original showrunner who was ousted but still engaging with fans on social media, has said that the final stretch of episodes, these last 3 episodes,
but only his fans, correct, Taylor?
No, not his only fans, but all the fans.
Okay, all the fans or only his fans?
I see what you're saying, but it's all the fans.
All the fans.
He said that for these last 3 episodes, you want to certain episodes you want to rewatch beforehand, and one of them is an episode called "Tolerance is Extinction" from the original show. And that original episode was a very interesting episode because it had a lot of doing with time travel. Gyrick, the whole bit of the episode was about the mutants will essentially change their attitude from like, we can coexist with humans to we're never going to live in peace. This isn't going to work. So it's a very interesting episode, and if that's the route that they're going, it's kind of holy shit. Like, we already saw that Cyclops snapped on the last couple episodes where he said that I tried doing it Professor X's way. Maybe Magneto's right, and they're already seeing that that's changing. So you're going to start seeing these X-Men kind of like maybe not loving the idea anymore, and with the main villain being revealed as Bastion and what he's doing, and the fact that spoilers if you haven't seen the last couple episodes, that not only is Magneto still alive, but he's kind of like toying with him. So you've also got some rumors that Cable and Bishop are going to play a major big role in these last couple episodes, and there may be some convergent timelines or other versions of these characters, like an alternate future Gambit that's going to show up from a different timeline that's not the same Gambit, but maybe the Age of Apocalypse Gambit or something. So you have a lot of different things that can be happening, but they did give us plenty of things that you should be watching ahead of time.
Yeah. And
they want people to, he said that what he wants people to watch is these are the following episodes. Obviously, Tolerance is Extinction. One Man's Worth, parts 11 and 12. He says Sanctuary, parts 1 and 2 from season 4. Season 5's episode 4's Descendant. Season 1, episode 13, The Final Decision. And obviously, One Man and that. So, like, you have those main episodes. He said this was how he tweeted it. Along with that other episode, the final prep that I recommend is One Man's Worth, parts 1 and 2, Sanctuary, parts 1 and 2, Descent, and then The Final Decision. So he gave 5 episodes in particular to people to go look at, and people are seeing the very dark trend in these episodes and what they're implying. So a lot of people are saying, holy crap, this could be a much darker finale
They're
arc than we were expecting with the raid on Genosha.
they're playing with time. I mean, time travel was already a part of the show with Bishop and Cable showing up already. So like it's already established that that's part of it. Great. Let's make it messy. The X-Men have always felt messy to me.
Yeah.
Let's let their world be messy and then watch them get out of that.
What I've always, and this is something that I've always loved, and I want to point this out to a lot of people, that in the world of time travel and the concept of time travel with any of these stories, these mediums, you have to actually realize that the moment a time traveler shows up, you're not in the prime timeline anymore. Like when people say, "Oh, I love Dragon Ball Z," I like to point out that Dragon Ball Z, in its prime timeline, Goku died of a heart attack and the world went to shit and the androids ruined everything. That is the canological prime timeline that Trunks had to stop from happening. So every time that you introduce a time traveler, you have to also realize that whatever world they came from is the shitty prime timeline. So I always love it when they do this, because you're like, wow, so string theory. Every time they go back to the future and they come back, something's changed. Yes, because the prime timeline has changed because of your interference. But the first time traveler, the first appearance of that time traveler, that is the canon shitty timeline. And that's how it all goes.
Well, I hope that they can expedite it. I mean, I don't know. The audience is hot right now, and I don't know. It's going to be a while before we get another 12 episodes.
I mean, they started working on this show in 2020.
Yeah.
So they better expedite it for sure, because I think people are going to very, very much be like, all right, I'm not waiting 4 years for another season.
Now, we did not have to wait 4 years for Rebel Moon Part 2, but how were those numbers?
So with Rebel Moon Part 2, Netflix has gone out and said that the film did phenomenal. And they put out all these numbers saying the film achieved, it's part of the global top 10, and it made 21.4 million views in its first week. And all these big numbers. And mind you, even 21.4 million views in its first week is still less than what Fallout made in its first week and less than what Part 1 made. But then you had Variety coming out, and Variety brought out some very different numbers. And they dropped these earlier today, saying that the streaming chart numbers from Variety, like they published this, Fallout in its first week had 1.2 billion minutes watched of the show.
I just watched the whole thing. I didn't really. I just binged the whole show.
Yeah. Fallout surpassed. It's the next TV show that was a big hit was Baby Reindeer, which had maybe half of what they did.
Baby Reindeer's crazy, Taylor. You got to watch it when the kids go to bed. You got to watch Baby Reindeer.
So it made Baby Reindeer hit half those numbers. And then in terms of movies, you had Rebel Moon Part 2 getting 741 minutes watched, but they reported not only was it just 740.8 million minutes watched, it actually correlated to about 6.1 million views, which is not 21.5 million views that Netflix is saying. It's not even a third. So you have one outlet saying, this is what we did, and then you have a major trade saying, you only did a third of that. But regardless, the bottom line was that Rebel Moon Part 2 still underperformed compared to Part 1. So you can argue that whatever it is, it didn't hit the numbers that they wanted. And behind the scenes, you even had Forbes, one of the actual analytic teams that were at Forbes, basically saying that Zack Snyder has plans for 6 films, and they're probably only going to get a third one, and that's it. Because of what we talked about last time, that Netflix has a new streaming plan, a new streaming system of how they're going to be doing things. And everyone who knows Dan Lin, he's going to crunch the numbers. He's going to fight things. He's going to make them work. But there's a lot of chatter behind the scenes that Dan Lin is not looking to spend this kind of money on on relatively unsure projects.
Yeah.
And despite the fact that, yes, it had some great numbers, part 2 was not only critically panned, but it was panned by the fans too.
Yeah. The his writer dies. There was some questionable choices, and that first 40 minutes of the movie are rough to get through.
Yeah. I mean, I watched it. It had some great action sequences in the second half, but I did I'm going to see what the director's cut has to do. I mean, because apparently part 3 hinges on the success of the director's cut later this year. And if the director's cut doesn't make these same numbers, they're going to be like, all right, it was a fluke. People just wanted to see it resolved and they moved on.
Yeah.
But if it does hit those numbers, then yes, we'll get part 3. And if part 3 gets those numbers, then maybe we'll get a part 4. But they're greenlighting projects one at a time now. They're not doing any package deals where they're like, yeah, here's $200 million to make 2 more films. They're going to say, no, we'll give you what you need to make 1 more. And if it works, then cool. But that's kind of where it is. Like, it's such a weird thing right now because Netflix is going out of their way to tell everyone that they're not going to be supporting our projects anymore.
Yeah.
That they're going to be working on things that are sure things, projects that they know will be successful.
Who picks up these people? Is this where Warner Brothers steps back in and says, we're completely different than before. You should make your movies here.
We'll see. I mean, because like I said before, it sounds like A24 has already pitched Zack Snyder a project, and that may be where he goes next for kind of a small budget, weird as shit kind of a movie that A24 is known for. But
I bet it's great. I guarantee you, with the notes from A24 and the fact that he will have a budget that he has to really be in. He has not had a budget in a long time. It feels like they let him do whatever he wants. Give him a tight budget and see what happens. I'm excited.
When Zack Snyder is forced to be creative, he shines. I've said it before. He made 300 out of $60 million, I think. Something just absolutely ridiculously small. And he said that he had filmed every bit of film he was allowed to. He had done everything he could, and he made that movie shine with the limitations that he had. But if you have a $200-300 million budget on a project, and then you tell him to cut down the project, it's not going to work.
Right.
A lot of people are pissed because what has been made very apparent was that Zack Snyder's whole Rebel Moon situation was them trying to manufacture a Snyder Cut movement. We're going to give him all this money, and then we're going to cut out a really mediocre alternate cut, and then get people to hype up a director's cut, and then that director's cut is going to be what we should have done the whole time. They were manufacturing fan outrage, and it's
part 2 doesn't cut the mustard.
No, I mean, unless the director's cuts are really night as day as he claims they are, which they very well should be, I think people are going to see it and be like, yeah, that wasn't what we got with Snyder's Justice League. That wasn't too much of a difference. All we got was a little bit more sex, a little bit more blood, but still the same story.
Right. Regardless of how much longer, I hope that they establish things more and flush things out. Are we still going to get 25 minutes of wheat? Isn't that?
Yeah, we're still going to get 45 minutes of them farming wheat. We're still going to get every character's death is still going to be the same death. It's not going to be like when people say it's a completely different film. It's like looking at a Spark Notes version of a book and then reading a book. It's still the same summary. The same characters die. The same things happen, but there's also going to be one scene of them fucking first.
I looked in our grab bag. I think that's everything. Is there anything left in your grab bag you want to grab bag out and we need to talk about it?
I honestly don't know. I mean, there's a lot of fun stuff still that are happening behind the scenes. The new Mufasa trailer came out, and I was not impressed.
Did not click on it. That last movie, the live action movie, was not. It was all. Go watch the YMS review on it. That movie, all they had to do was copy the original movie, and they did it. And it's not. It's got crazy issues, and the original cartoon is near perfect movie.
It is, and every change that they made to the live action Lion King, which is just the CGI animated Lion King, because it's still an animated film,
right?
All the changes that they made, I wholeheartedly disagreed with. I was like, wow, you didn't need to take out that song because it was offensive. That's why that song was there. I don't know. They had so many issues there. But another fun thing is uh, Burt Lanty Productions, the guy that made the Arrowverse over on the CW, has just been hired by Netflix to make a live action Scooby-Doo series.
You know what's funny is
Which is it could go one of two ways.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah. I was gonna say I mean, I don't know. People were still felt like the characters were comic accurate, correct? Like they were like the low budget version, but like they still paid homage to them. I think he could probably do. I mean, I don't know. You either do like Riverdale, right, where they're all like sexy, like teens in tight clothes.
So either you're going to get Riverdale and very dark and serious, and like a bunch of teenagers that are played by 25-year-olds who they're all like all doing things they shouldn't be doing as teenagers, or it's going to be campy and ridiculous like the Gun movies, and people are going to love it to death because it's going to be borderline TVMA where they're making a lot of weed jokes.
I wonder, do you do kids? Like, I'm trying to think of the age. Do you do like Stranger Thing age kids, or do you do them like 22? Like, of course they're going to do paranormal investigating, but I wonder what other part, like, yeah, do you make the show funny? Or is the Arrowverse funny? Are they like funny episodes?
Not really.
Okay.
In the original show, they were only supposed to be 16, 17, 18 in that region. Like, I think Fred and Shaggy were supposed to be 17.
Okay.
And that's kind of the ages of those original characters. They were not meant to be adults. They were always meant to be teenagers. So they could easily do like a Riverdale style, like we're in high school, but we're also in our minivan and solving crimes and shit. And there's Old Man Jenkins, like all that.
How do you do Scooby-Doo? Do you just get a big dog, or do you do them CG?
You have to do it. You have to do it correctly. You also have to do it in a way that like people don't question the reality. Like maybe dogs just talk in this world, or maybe Shaggy's just high all the time and he's the only one who can hear him.
Maybe that's
what like a Charles Manson thing where his dog is talking to him and he's the only one who can hear it.
Just like Charles Manson, he was a plant by the government. He's there to get those guys in trouble, bust them with the law.
Didn't they make that joke in the Venture Brothers? Like they had the Scooby-Doo characters, and Scooby kept talking to Shaggy, telling him to like be the righteous sword of the archangels, and he's like, "Stop it!" Like it was some gag about that. Yeah. But a last bit of this. This is something that I thought was actually pretty interesting.
Okay.
Jerry Seinfeld has been in the news a lot lately because
his finale popping up on my dad's feed. Yeah, he's been telling me all about Jerry Seinfeld.
Yeah, because of his very wonderful finale on Curb Your Enthusiasm, where not only did they go in and fix the finale of Seinfeld,
they retconned Seinfeld.
Yeah, in such a great way. I was like, wow, they actually made the ending to Seinfeld very good. He's actually gone out blasting people today, basically saying that the extreme left, PC culture, and the inability to allow jokes to exist without offending people is why comedy is dying. And this is actually the first time this conversation's happened. You've had people like literally all of the Monty Python guys say the same thing, that comedy was meant to be critical, and you're meant to like take serious topics and allow people to laugh at them. And if you can't have those conversations anymore, then people are taking things too seriously.
Well, comedy as a product is going away.
Yeah.
Like there are lots of rooms all over this country where people are doing stand-up and are saying edgy or questionable things. Yeah. And that space will always exist. But, you know, if in a world, I mean, I don't know. The Fallout show was pretty raunchy. I felt like that had some real adult material in it. Now I know that's not the same here. I think it's both ends. I think both ends cannibalize it. I think the liberals and the conservatives, they ruin all of this stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I guess people would want to know what is the point of being offended? Or like, what does the offense lead to? And if it's just for laughs, then that's okay. But I don't know. I mean, I found the world feels like it's on fire, so maybe it just feels like more fuel to the fire.
Maybe. It's always been interesting because I've always felt that taking offense to something has been a choice, right? I mean, people can choose to fixate on what someone else is doing, and they choose to allow that thing to offend them. But at the end of the day, your opinion doesn't matter to me, and my opinion shouldn't matter to you. So whatever you say and you believe shouldn't cause me any emotional harm.
We need
But-
to pull back the kayfabe on comedy and like understand that stand-up comedians are like porn stars, right? Like,
Yeah, they really
yes, she looks this way, and this is what she was being paid to do. It's outrageous. But in her normal life, she's just like a normal person.
Yeah.
So, like, understand that, like, the comedy act, the shtick is just some jokes I'm doing, but like, I understand that the world's a nuanced and crazy place and like not one size fits all, but you have to go to the extremes to make it funny. I feel like we need to like let people know like wrestling is fake, okay? And that's okay. They're still taking those big bumps. Comedy is fake, even though there are some people that probably have those opinions. Hopefully, they can learn to laugh at themselves. But if not, please buy some more chicken wings, tip your servers. Good night, everybody.
Exactly. So it's just one of those, like, I miss the days where we could just laugh at this stuff. You know, like, you go back to any TV show, like The Office, you couldn't do that show today because people would be offended. Friends, you couldn't do that today because people would find something to be offended about. Community is one of my favorite shows of all times. The entire first 2 seasons is very hypercritical on all of this. And they have some masterfully played jokes about this exact thing. So I think that people just need to learn how to like maybe not be as serious, because the internet has perpetuated this where you seem to think that these echo chambers that we permit ourselves to be a part of, that's how the world is. But you said it yourself, like the extremes, the extreme left, the extreme right, that's not everybody. But we allow these extremes to govern how the conversation on the internet goes.
And in a comedy, right, in this comedy club, I'm trying to get everybody to think about something and get on the same page about it, even if we don't all think the same way about it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I also think maybe comedy's not for everybody. Like, I don't, there's maybe people that are too serious. Like, you don't like every flavor at 31 Flavors, right? You're like, oh, that's like bubblegum. That's like a baby ice cream. Like my baby eats that, but I'm not going to eat that.
I still like that flavor.
Okay.
I don't buy it when I get it, but I go for certain flavors. But like,
Heard. I think that's the same way. And I think that, like, I don't know. Like, The Hangover is a raunchy comedy, but it's also not a smart comedy.
No,
like,
it's not, but
it's offensive. It's funny, but like, I don't know. You can do offensive funny. I mean, Monty Python were masters of that. I mean, they did a movie that, you know, the Bible would say is blasphemous, and it's hilarious. But I mean, I don't know if it would be Dead on Arrival, though.
And that's the thing, is that you have people nowadays who try to kill these things before they exist because they think it's going to somehow destroy their lives if it exists, which is just taking it too far. I mean, Blazing Saddles is one of the funniest movies of its time. And the reason why that movie is so funny is because you have the 2 writers of the film writing each other's dialogue. And they were purposely trying to be as offensive as they could be. And you're muted again, Michael, but I can see you.
No, I keep coughing up a lung. I don't know what's going on over here. I didn't want to interrupt you.
I just feel like people need to realize that, like, the whole world doesn't need to be as insane as this is. And yes, some of these, I don't know. Anchorman 2 was one of those movies that actually told a valuable lesson, despite the fact that people didn't like it as much as the first one.
It's a garbage movie, Taylor, but that's fine.
Yeah, it's not as funny as the first one, but the whole point of that movie, when they were saying how news had changed because of how people were grabbing like outrage and like, oh, we're gonna do it live, we're gonna do this, we're gonna speculate the crap out of this situation until people start paying attention to us. That's kind of where society went downhill. Like when reality TV show replaced scripted TV, and comedy was no longer allowed because people were offended by it. Like this is all like Fahrenheit 451 level bullshit, where the biggest voice is now controlling how everyone is allowed to think.
I guess that just means we're old men, right? Like now, if we're just gonna start ranting about New World Order conspiracies, like, right?
I'm getting there.
I know. I mean, it's crazy. We live in a world where Texas is like, you're as free as you want to be. It's like, oh, we're gonna protest on this campus. No, you can't do that. It's like, what are you doing, Texas? This is your whole shtick. This is your whole deal.
There's so many things that I'm just like, all right, well, okay.
Well, we'll lose our followers the fastest way possible if we continue. So, Taylor, take us home.
We're gonna take it home. So, if you'd like to listen to our rants and all of our weird, misguided views, head over to the patreon.com/theculturednerd. Give us some support. Help us keep the lights on. Thank you, everyone who is currently supporting, because you guys help us keep doing what we're doing. I have been your host, Taylor Murphy. My co-host, Michael Santel. Logo was created by Jose Navarro, and myself and Jay Stu made that awesome intro in the beginning. If you're sitting at home, if you're sitting there on the couch and you want to think, hey, maybe I should harass these guys on social media, scan that QR code and come harass me, because I'll see the message. I may not open it and respond, but I'll see it. So
Jerry Seinfeld is 70 years old, okay? He's 70 years old. He sounds like a 70-year-old man.
He really does. That's what's so funny about it, was that people are now up in arms about what he said, but he's acting the part of a 70-year-old man.
I'm sorry Grandpa's upset. I'm not worried about upsetting Grandpa anymore.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, the internet's also collectively losing its mind over the loss of TikTok, and we'll see what happens to that in the next few months. But thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night, TikTok.